Joining us now is Shelby Steele. Of course, Shelby is a longtime academic, author. He's the author of Shame, How America's Past Sins Have Polarized Our Country, so many other great books. And he's at the Stanford University Hoover Institution. He wrote a piece just a few days ago in the Wall Street Journal, Why the Left Cannot Let Go of Racism. And there's much in this piece that you must read for yourself, and we post the entire thing on Facebook. But this is a part of it that really struck me. A staple on cable news these days is the, quote, racial incident, which stands as a referendum on this question, this ultimate question of race he's talking about. Today there's Charlottesville. Yesterday there were the deaths of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, and others. Don't they reveal an irrepressible racism in American life? At the news conferences surrounding these events, there's always the Al Sharpton clones, if not the man himself, ready to spin the tale of black tragedy and white bigotry. Such people, and the American left generally, have a hunger for racism that is almost craven. Shelby Steele joins us now. Professor, how are you? Good to talk to you again. Haven't talked to you for a while.
It's been a little while. Good to be here.
So this is quite something. Of course, post Charlottesville, and there's plenty to say about that still. And the president probably could have been clearer in his initial statement, and probably should have just let it go after that second statement. But nevertheless, here we are again in this conversation about race in American society, and Jesse Jackson seeking, I think, to use this again to get himself back in the headlines, but not sure what positive outcome will occur from his involvement.
No, I don't think any will. I think he represents this old sort of formula for power, accusing America of racism, trying to injure the moral authority of American society so that he then comes in as the savior. He's the good man. He's against racism. He's for the innocence of the nation. And he should therefore be rewarded in one way or another. And he has been.
Well, and I think Al Sharpton and other newcomers to this hustle, as some call it, are people like Michael Eric Dyson, who was speaking at a National Action Network, it's the Al Sharpton Group event, and he said this. Let's listen.
Part of the problem going on now is because one guy in office hated the guy who came before him. You just mad a Negro was in charge. The anti-blackness that we see manifest with lethal ferocity and troubling reality is mirrored in the fact that he just hate the fact that a black man was in charge.
He gets quite a bit of applause and reaction for that, and there's a deep sense of missing President Obama, I think, among African Americans and of course American liberals. Like it was some utopia for race relations during the 8 years that he was president.
Well, I think what's interesting about Dyson and the comment you just played is this man is a plague on his people. He does nothing but fan up their insecurities, scream at them that they are victims, that they are owed something, that they are entitled, that they've been put upon, that they're down. And when we really know the reality is, of course, that the only way minorities, whether they've been oppressed or not, are going to move ahead is by self-reliance and positive good faith. Rather, what Dyson is preaching here is bad faith, is to be suspicious of your country, doubt your country, doubt that you have any opportunities, disbelieve. That's the way to move ahead. What a profound and horrible message to be sending to black Americans as we try to come out of what we've been through.
It's almost a new declaration of dependence. Like a declaration of dependence. Right. We're waiting for the great rescue.
That's right. It's entitlement as a badge of honor, as an identity. This is who I am. I am an entitled being because I'm black. I can't imagine that the Ku Klux Klan would have the imagination to come up with a more self-defeating message to black Americans.
Now, Professor,
and our leadership is devoted to this. I mean, across the board, the people in Congress, anywhere you look at black American leadership at this point, it is as though they have become the enemies of their people.
Well, there is an obsession with the race question above all else. And it's not an obsession that's based in a desire to really fix things, because if people just get busy and they get jobs, and President Trump was criticized for saying this, but he said, I think the best way to improve race relations is to get this economy moving. And they
well, it's absolutely right.
He's like, I can't believe he said that. They were trashing him when he said that at Trump Tower, and he looked and said, yeah, people got to get jobs. You have to have a sense of self-worth and dignity in every job that we do. And they were trashing him for that. I thought, what? That's real empowerment. Not waiting for the government check or waiting for some government bureaucrat to show up and put his arms around you. But actually having the dignity of work. That's what helped my family. That's what helped every person's family I know who came from modest means.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. It's certainly what helped my family. What can you say? I mean, it is tragic. It represents to me the end, where the decline of the kind of liberalism that came out of the 1960s, which was based in the idea of racism as a means to power, claiming racism, screaming victimization as a means to power. Where we've now come to the point where that paradigm is just simply absurd, and it is crushing black America more than segregation ever did. I grew up in segregation. I know it intimately. I had more hopefulness, more classic American values than you see in inner cities today. The South Side of Chicago, where I grew up. I never saw a gun. I never saw a handgun. And yet last year 4,000 people were shot on the South Side. That's liberalism. That's convincing people that they have no hope. It's preaching, literally preaching bad faith. In history, I think we're going to see we're going to comprehend the self-destructiveness that's involved in this sort of racial turmoil that we keep festering.
The Trump administration announced at the beginning of August that it was going to take a look at affirmative action in college campuses, and based on the idea that people shouldn't be admitted to universities based solely on the issue of race. It was an internal document to the Civil Rights Division, and it's called Investigations and Possible Litigation Related to Intentional Race-Based Discrimination in College and University Admissions. Asian students being excluded because they're overrepresented. Places like Stanford, where you are, or USC, or a lot of the California schools, or African Americans who, in some cases, might get a leg up on others. That fact that they're even looking into it, of course, is leading the left to scream racism as well.
Well, absolutely. But I'm certainly I loathe affirmative action. It does the very worst thing you can do. It destroys even the possibility for minorities of having dignity. If I've talked on college campuses, and black students come up to me, and one kid who'd gotten in a fight because his roommate told him he wouldn't be on campus if he weren't black. So that you're putting young, talented black people precisely in the position, you kick them up a notch, so that they're in the position where they're likely to fail. And you're telling them that no matter what they do, they wouldn't be there if they weren't black. Well, the message there is, of course, that they're inferior, and that you, as a beneficent institution, are compensating for their inferiority. But the whole system is based on the presumption of black and minority inferiority. How is that going to be good? How is that going to build the esteem and the dignity of this beleaguered people? It is let me have credit for what I do achieve. If I don't get into Harvard and I get into a big state university, then I'll do well there and thrive, and I'll feel good about myself. It's whatever I got it. I want black people to be in a position where they can take credit for what they do, for what they achieve. Affirmative action denies this segment of the population the opportunity to achieve excellence and to take credit for excellence.
Did you see this piece, Shelby? We're talking to Shelby Steele, author, academic, all-around star. Love his writing, documentary filmmaker. He's done everything. Even with affirmative action, blacks and Hispanics are more underrepresented at top colleges than 35 years ago. Big New York Times survey on the percentages of African Americans. Asians are more represented than they were because we have immigration. We have a lot of kids coming in from China, Korea, et cetera. But it's basically been unchanged for black freshmen at elite schools. Black students are just 6% of the freshmen, but 15% of college-age Americans, as the chart below shows. So that's another data point that they will say, see, we're still not doing enough. I guess we have to do more. That's the dynamic that is set forth.
That's exactly right. That is the dynamic, because the dynamic is set up in affirmative action and almost all of the social programs today to basically win moral authority for the institution, moral authority for the American government. See, we're not a racist country. We're innocent of our past. We've overcome our past, and our affirmative action programs prove that. And so the whole focus is on whites. This is a program designed to win back moral authority for white America.
White guilt,
not for
as
black.
You've written about.
Yeah, white guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Not black America. Black Americans are languishing in this. They're living in a society that doesn't give them a clear, honest message of what is simply expected of human beings: to be responsible, to be self-reliant, to move ahead on your own merits, to have the honor of that. Then you can hold your head up. Then you can compete. And so our country now is robbing the minorities, oppressing them all over again, so that they can be innocent.
And Shelby, Shelby, I'm sorry to interrupt. We only have a short period here. But on the issue of Berkeley and what we saw with the protests, the shutting down of speech, obviously conservative speakers and others not allowed to speak, intimidated from speaking. 20 seconds on your thoughts on that. Well,
boy, what can you say? It is this. I think it's the last throes of this liberalism that we've had since the 1960s. That is really about white guilt, about moral authority for whites. If you look at these protesters, the only words they can talk about are racism. They love racism. They need racism. It's their lifeblood. So they're going to see it, whether it's there or not. And they've taken this to some really, truly absurd level. You notice there are no ideas that they argue about at all, no public policy that they ever discuss, or I don't know what they stand on anything. I don't know what their ideology is. They're just, racism has been their power, and they're going to have it, and they're going to pretend that it's still here no matter what.
Shelby Steele, I'm so appreciative that we have you speaking out on these issues, that our country has you. You're a treasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Come back anytime. Who's the next Shelby Steele coming up behind him? That's my question. Is there another Shelby Steele? I hope so. We better find someone because we need new voices like his. We'll take a break. Close it out. Thanks for listening to this podcast excerpt of The Laura Ingraham Show. If you'd like to receive podcasts of our complete shows, go to lauraingraham.com and sign up to become a member of Laura 365. Our Laura 365 members get commercial-free streams and podcasts of our shows every day we're on the air. And also you can listen to the last 30 days of The Laura Ingraham Show. Be ahead of the curve. Join Laura 365.